Hey, and welcome to Represent. I am your host, Crunk Chocolate. For those who weren't a part of Shady Gang last summer, the show Represent is me taking advantage of the off season, getting outside of my Manchester City bubble and talking to supporters at different clubs. No competition means we aren't in competition. A truce of sorts. During Represent, we aren't rivals. We are simply football family. But we don't even have to worry about that in this episode. I am real geeked about today's guest, Shady Gang, multifaceted individual, multi-talented human being whose name you might know from one's mid ventures. Maybe a night of dancing, sweating, moving those hips to his DJ set. Was it when you were doubled over laughing during a comedy set? Were you like me, who had heard him on a podcast about the squared circle? We share a love for wrestling. Simply, you could have just known him as a citizen. Give it up, Shady Gang, for Flobo Boyce AKA Flobito. How's it
Yeah,
going?
I'm sorry. This I know I'm supposed to say that's the best intro ever, but that's literally the best intro I've ever had. I mean, okay, cool. I need to hire you, brother. No, I'm good. I'm glad to be here. Crunk chocolate.
Yeah, I try to make guests as welcome as possible, and this is me because a lot of these times this is us first half hopping on. I hit record. We did the niceties, hey, hi, hello. But other than that, I you could still secretly be like, this guy might be an asshole. This could be a trap. So I just let it all out there and just try to welcome you.
Oh, I know what you mean. Like when I first started my podcast, I did all my booking through DMs, and so I know people showed up like, I wonder how sketchy Flobito is. But I swear to you, I'm a good person.
Well, let Shady Gang, the listeners, know a little bit more about you. You mentioned a podcast. I mentioned an array of things that you do. So,
Yeah.
yeah, let us know
Well,
who you are.
it's interesting because like people ask you, what do you do? And I'm having that problem now because I actually work alongside the U.S. Air Force as a civilian, as an honorary commander. So it's like basically like civilians like, hey, what do you do? And you're like, I do a lot, and it's all crazy stuff. So the best way to describe myself is a live entertainment professional, and that's basically what I do. If it's me, if it's Flobo Boys presenting, projecting, getting ideas across, that's what I do. So I've done things with weddings and DJing and clubs and stuff like that. I've done stand up comedy, keynote speaking, esports commentary, and combat sports commentary. So if you ever got a wrestling promotion, you need someone to be on the call with some chocolate in them, let me know. I can tell you
Hey.
that as well.
Yeah, and like I said, I found you out through wrestling, and I have no idea how. I didn't know that you were a City fan, so like the moment I found out you were a City fan, I immediately DM'd you, and I was just like, "Yo."
Yeah, oh, true story. Well, I don't know if you listen to the MacMania show
I
formerly
do.
on this. So
Hmm.
like Evan Mack supports United, and so we had this
Oh, I
gentleman's
didn't know
agreement
that.
not to bring up soccer or football on the podcast because he's a big United supporter. But yeah, I kind of fell into being a Manchester City fan. It was kind of by accident, but yeah, that's my European club for sure.
Well, okay, so I mean, the first question in it is we don't even get to talk about the clubs. We get to know the person more.
Yeah.
And the first question is your origin story. How did you become a fan of football? You said you fell into the citydom. How did you
Oh yeah.
become a citizen?
Oh, so the football question, and I'll be the first one to admit I am thoroughly American. You know what I mean? I grew up knowing that soccer was a game that you played as a kid, and then you got a
Yeah.
real sport after that. But I studied abroad. My third year in college, I was in Costa Rica because my mind at the time was Spanish, and it was a summer out there in Costa
No.
Rica. It was just kind of like immersion school. It was like 6 hours of Spanish instruction every day. I came back almost fluent. That was 2006, and that was when the World Cup was in Germany. And the first day of the World Cup was Germany against Costa Rica. And it was a
Mm.
big deal. And I was like, World Cup, who gives? I'm going to go to the mall because that's what we do. We buy stuff, right? I get to the mall, and this is Heredia, the city Heredia. I get to the mall, and the stores are open, and all the shops are open, but everyone working in the store is downstairs in the food court watching the first game of the World Cup 2006. And I was like, oh, if it's that big of a deal, let me see what it's all about. And I was instantly hooked. So the first part of the tournament, I was there. I was back in the United States at the time to see us get bounced out by Ghana the first time, but I was pretty much on par with that, which is great. So it opened me up to like supporting MLS again because I was supporting MLS when they first started in '96 as a Metro Stars fan. Kind of fell off. It was like whatever. So I got back into that hardcore. And for City though, this you'll love this story. It was a birthday party. I was going to a local pub here in Santa Monica. It's a British place called Ye Old King's Head. They had Premier League matches, and I was supporting the Galaxy at the time because Juan Pablo Angel had moved over to LA. And I saw a couple from Manchester having dinner, which is really weird, right? Because here's someone who's like from England. They got an 11-hour flight to Los Angeles and they're eating food in a British pub, right? Like, why would they? Why would you do that? But we're sitting there talking about soccer, talking about football, and they're like, "Hey man, do you support any Premier League teams?" I'm like, "No, I want to support the local stuff. You got to build up your own MLS. You got to build up the local
Mhm.
soccer thing to really make that a thing." They go, "Okay, we understand. Hey, listen, we'll tell you what. It's your birthday. We will buy your drinks all night. But if you ever decide to pick up a Premier League squad, how about you pick up City?" And so people always say, "What got you to
Hey.
be a City fan?" And the answer was 5 pints of Newcastle. That's what that made me. And it was 2010, and so I didn't really know anybody at the time in the squad. So I picked someone at random. I actually had my finger, and I was like, "You," and it was Carlos Tevez, and I was a fan ever
Hey.
since. So it came after the money. People always say, "Are you after the investment or before?" Like it's some kind of hardcore thing. I got bribed into it, but I loved it so much because what kind of fandom would do that? I'm a New York Mets fan. I won't give anyone more than one beer to watch a baseball game. They give me five. So I was a fan since then. So it's been almost 15 years now, 13 years.
That I've heard many City Origins fan stories, and that is a first. Like that's a solid one. And at least you, because I I don't joke about it too often, but we as U.S. fans, we get crap by a lot of English fans because
Mhm.
we aren't from that area. We blah 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 blah. But honestly, they didn't choose where they were born. They literally were born, and then their parents put a jersey on them, and they're like, "All right, you like this team now." I mean, there
Yeah.
are the occasional people who change it, so it's just like we actually chose the teams, and honestly, you're an honor like you're an honorary commander, you're an honorary Mancunian, and honestly, you were baptized by somebody like they were just that's a very solid origin
that
story, honestly.
that's what I mean about the whole Mets fandom. Like just to go to baseball again real quick. Like there's two teams in New York and the Yankees are the brand of baseball. You wear a Yankee
Hmm.
hat wherever. But when you see someone wearing a Mets hat, you have some connection to that city. It doesn't matter if you're from New York or you're stuck in a layover and someone said, "Let's go to a game." And so I felt that from the city supporters. Like here's people on vacation. And I know when I'm on vacation, I'm spending money on me. You know what I mean? You find a
Facts.
random stranger and you say, "I'm gonna put you on." I mean, I already felt like I was part of that family. So I know people say, "Oh man, it's not the same. You're a fake fan or whatever." But I felt genuine love and appreciation from that couple. I didn't even get their names at the time, so yeah, that's I honor them by going blue.
Hey, no, I love that. And honestly, yeah, I hate all the people who, try to give us insults.
Mhm.
With the success of City, it's very tough to really hold anything against us. So you just gotta do what you can. So calling us a plastic, that's it. Calling us a big fan, that's really all you got right now. Especially if
Yeah.
we get this Champions League, like it's over for any nonsense. I'm gonna be not a good person next season on the podcast if City win this treble. Like
Yeah.
the smack
And
talk I'm gonna have.
well deserved too. Like it, you don't even have to be a fan of City or a hater of City to know how great Pep Guardiola is at keeping that level of excellence that long and that high. And so, for me personally, the reason why I do podcasts is that I hate gatekeepers. I hate them. I
Mhm.
had NXT podcasts coming back this week actually because I felt people were like, "Oh, you watch NXT, you're not a real fan," or "You should watch Japan," like that. Or I have a Star Trek podcast for that reason. "Oh, you watch Star Trek? You don't watch this Star Trek. You watch that Star Trek." And I go, "You guys kill everything." because I think about my love affair of F1, where I used to not watch it, till I got into it, and then DTS came out, Drive to Survive became a
Mhm.
thing. But now I can't even admit that because people who are hardcore fans go, "Oh, these new DTS fans come and ruin
Uh-huh.
everything," and I'm like, you want things to survive, right? If you don't, then things fade off into the distance. That's why we get reboots all the time. Just let people in, you know.
And I'm not gonna lie, I am the Drive to Survive guy. I do not watch like I pay attention to what goes on Twitter. I have a bunch of people love it through Twitter, so I kind of know what's going on. But every new season that comes on, I may or may not know who won. I am that gross fan that people actually want to shoot at, but they don't shoot at me
Right.
because I mean they have other things to attack me about. But yeah, I love F1, but it's just like there's it's I don't quite understand I need to be with somebody who really fucks with it for them to explain it to me in a level for me to understand and then grow my appreciation. But until then, I'll be waiting for that new season of DTS.
Oh, for real. But the thing is, you and I are in the same boat because I'm not sure about you growing up, but I was bullied too for a lot of great, not a nerdy stuff and whatever. I used to be
Mhm.
afraid to share stuff, and so now I got to see nerd culture become cool, and
Yeah,
everyone could
right.
wear a Batman shirt and be like, "Oh, I'm such a nerd!" Ha ha ha! I'm like, bro, I got to fight because I read Archie comics. You know what I'm saying? So if you want to learn something, go down that rabbit hole and just share it stuff. I want to be a City fan, be a City fan because at the end of the day, why does my happiness make you so mad?
Right.
That's a you problem.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and the reason why we started this is, I mean, obviously it's representation, but I just really wanted to talk about City. I did a previous like weekly news show and it just was nothing but in the news book blues, like I said. And it was by the time I got done writing, recording, and editing, it was all like 3, 4 day old news in a 24-hour news cycle. And that just bummed me out. So I needed to pivot to something that brought me joy. And I wanted to do City, but I knew I didn't want to do it by myself and needed multiple opinions because that's what I feel like really drives thought and culture. And I feel like sometimes in city Twitter and stuff like that, uh, it gets very echo chambery. And so
Mhm.
not only did I want to bring in my people that I brought in, I sometimes have my own take. But you know what you got to do with podcasting? You got to like flip it and say the opposite and maybe coax my thought out of somebody else just to see if I'm not all alone. But then also I have no problem jumping off of ledges with wild takes and stuff like that. But
Right, right.
it's been fun and the support we've got after I mean it's only been 16 months of doing this. It's been fantastic and I think we're doing a lot for the city culture in the US, but also just culture in general because almost every represent episode that I'm doing here is with a person of color. So that's
Yeah,
just a lot of melanin talking about football. And that in itself, I feel like is a culture shifter, even if it isn't stated. And sometimes I don't want it to be stated. I just want it to be seen and understood.
yeah. Well, if you wanted me to hate on you, like most people on Twitter, I can. But you're doing good things, brother. First of all,
Oh please, I love I want all the smoke. No, I also joke that next season the only way we're gonna get this show to another level is beef, is pod beef. We need pod beef.
I love it.
So let's go for it. We'll figure it out. But let's talk about some city. Like this is real nice. I think you're the first other city fan that I've interviewed with. So usually I've just been listening to other people talk about their clubs and chiming in a little bit of city stuff. So this is real nice to be able to just go back and forth. So we'll start off with the beginning of last season with the transfer moves. Alvarez came to City. We had Halan. Um, we made some really big moves. We lost some players, Sterling, Jesus, uh, Zinchenko. Overall, um, we had the loss to Real and everything like that. But how were you feeling about the transfer moves and what City were doing and tooling up for the next season.
Yeah, I wish I had a straight answer for you because there's one things where you have the transfers, you're like, oh, that's a bad move, or oh, that's a good
Mhm.
move. It really felt like a cliffhanger. It's like, how is Pep going to get out of this one? Like, because the shape was completely different. I mean,
Mhm.
you had Sterling with that was an engine, and you could argue that City is a slower team or more deliberate team, more deliberate team. We'll say slower team. So I didn't really know how it was going to work out, and we saw that the top half of the campaign. There were some concessions of goals and concessions of games that made me go, I guess this is it. I guess the dream of that Champion League trophy is just not going to happen. We're not going to get that thing. But I guess again, like I said at the top of the show, I'm not sure if we recorded that part, but you got to get credit to Pep, man. Just finding a way to work with the strengths and be on the fly and just be tactical for this new shape. And Akanji just is over delivering. It was seemed to be almost like a ghost pickup, being able to provide dividends the back half of the stretch.
This after the transfer moves and everything, not knowing what Pep was going to do, what were your expectations leading into the season? We had just won. We were reeling from that Real loss, and revenge was on the mind.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure how it is with you because you're like in the podcast space for Flitty, but you have that one friend who just digs at you all the time, and my friend Phil, shout out to Phil Svitek, who is a big Madrid fan, would not shut up about what happens, and you start not to say that you doubted anyone, you don't want to see it happen, but I was starting to be okay with the future. With what, if this team is still top performer domestically or even gets a double, fine. I'm fine with it because the Champions League Cup just seems so elusive. It just seemed like that was something that Pep wasn't going to make happen. So expectations were muted. They really
Mm.
were, and I hate to say that because you want your team to win every game. You want your team to go on an unbeaten streak to last years and years and years. But I was ready to live in a world without it. But what we saw, especially heading into the fall, because I was at the Etihad in January for an FA Cup tie against Chelsea, and
Nice.
City won that game 4-0, and I was like, wait. This team could do it. This team is for real. Like this new makeup can actually make this happen. I saw
Yeah.
it live, and it was palpable. So yeah, I think that I'll be the first one to admit that I was wrong. I'm hopefully wrong, but I was definitely being down on the squad the early half of the season.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people really were, and it's understandable because we ended the season great, but obviously with the sour taste in the Champions League, and we had brought Holland in, and we technically started off hot, and then it kind of just like cooled off for a little bit, and then with the mixture of knowing that the World Cup was coming, so we wanted to try to figure things out, and Arsenal were already kind of just like on fire, just immediately. It, I don't know. I understand. I am the type that I was like, the Champions League, I understand Pep is saying that it doesn't matter. I understand our players are saying that it doesn't matter. It matters. It matters big time.
Mm-hmm.
Those are just the things that you are supposed to say. You need to say. He's in England, so he needs to obviously say the things that he needs. Let's focus on the English trophies and stuff like that. But Pep for him, he hears all the noise. We know how important that Champions League is, and if and when we win this first one, people will, I think we'll hear a lot of people backtracking and being like, hey, when I said I didn't think that the Champions League didn't matter, I was lying. I was just lying to myself, and now I'm so happy that it's here. And I
Yeah,
don't care. As long as we get to the same position that the Champions League matters, I don't care how you got there. Like, welcome to the club, everybody.
trophies only matter if you win them. Of course, if you don't win them, you're like, it's about to have
Yeah.
the friends and we met along the way, right? But if you win the hardware, it does matter. And it is interesting though, seeing that the fallout last season. Last Champions League campaign to this one, there's a lot more of that mistakes that were adjusted for, which I kind of felt like the strategy of the pickups and the new shape is something that we don't talk about enough. And I know we were probably getting ahead of myself, but that first game against Madrid this campaign where it was tied, I was like, no, no. We
Mhm.
no, we supposed to get past this, brother. What are we doing?
Yeah.
I mean, we
Yeah,
salvaged
man.
the tie, but at the same time, it was like not the idea at all. So again, I got to give so much credit to being able to be flexible, especially of how so many moving parts are here for the squad.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it leads to the next question. What do you feel were our best wins and the worst loss of this season? And
Yeah,
I don't know, what What do you say?
I kind of tipped my hand on both of those because I was live for my first game that he had for that cup tie against Chelsea,
Oh
and it was such a complete win. Just seeing the whole town come out for that, it was a comfortable win. Definitely in a part of the year they needed it the most, right after the
man.
start of the year, and even though it was, I would say, squad A.5 A
Yeah.
slash B, it was still pretty solid. And the two losses that or the two disappointing results that really hit me was, I mentioned also that first leg with Real Madrid. It kind of felt like the demons are coming back to get us, and it was all doom and gloom. And I was like, well, how are they going to do this? And but definitely the Derby loss too. I mean, you don't want to lose to a team like United, full stop, period. But definitely a shaky United. The way they were this season. I mean, I'm not trying to say they're whack. Don't clip this out and put it on Twitter and have all the United supporters come after me. But them and Arsenal were not on the best of things towards the rest of the season. So the fact we dropped the game to them made me go like, guys, that's something you have to pick up, especially now.
So you say you won't be all out there
But
at the
I'm looking
United
at
fans,
you
but I will. This is
like a
me
peasant
directly at United fans.
because you are a girl. You know, you really jumped out the window when you compared yourself to me.
Like, I don't even like that we share the beginning of the city name together. Like, can y'all be something else? Something else united? Like, you're gonna have to figure something out, especially when we win this treble, especially when we win the quadruple next season. Like, y'all are just gonna have to move out and just call yourselves the Uniteds. I don't know. Figure something out.
Wow. Wow. Just a flamethrower in the booth.
Yes. Well, welcome to Crunk Chocolate and Shades of Blue. These are the things that I honestly do almost every episode.
Yo, what's gonna
Uh,
happen? You go to Manchester, you gotta wear like a hood or something? Like, yo, there you go. Get him.
luckily, I'm actually planning on crashing with a few Shady Gang members and to like cut some funds because I'm trying to stay for 3 weeks because I just want to bounce around and try to go to as many division matches as possible
Yeah.
from yeah. And
You
so
gotta do it sooner than later, man, because that pound is like weak. It hasn't
I
been this
know,
weak in like
I
15
know,
years. So
I know. It's only getting worse, and
yeah.
that's what it is. I just bought it and I was like, I'll figure it out from there. And so yeah, I'm gonna try to get down there and hang out and I would like to believe I will have plenty of people with me.
Yeah.
But if not, it also helps that I'm like 6'4", 250. So
Okay.
uh, worst case, I can just not look happy
Right.
and I'll be fine. A lot of my friends say Royce with glasses and Royce with contacts look. It's a completely different dude. Like I look very approachable with these glasses on, but when I'm like
Right.
by myself with these glasses off, people say I don't look as nice. So
Say the same thing about Clark Kent. I hear you, bro. I hear you.
yeah, oh, yes. That's funny. Uh, okay, so okay, who do you feel is City's MVP for the season? Because obviously everyone could say it's Haaland because of all the goals, but
Yeah.
then KDB is one of the big reasons he scored a bunch of those goals. But Rodri is misunderstood.
Mhm.
Ake stepped up. Like there's choices, so I'm very interested to see who you're gonna pick.
It is interesting, yeah, because I mean, yeah, you can't knock the output of Holland for sure, but like and because of that, and because of how many goals he scored, I won't say Gundo's been unmarked, but they gave him
Mm.
the space to operate, which is pretty cool too, and kind of saved our butts plenty of times. But I gotta give it to Mahrez, man. Here's somebody who is on these A
Hey.
lineups, who's on these B lineups, got so much hate for not being for being lazy or whatever, but still comes in when needs to be, saving a lot of games out there. You need workhorses. And so, yeah, KDB is always a guy I vote for when it comes to European competitions. Go Belgium, but Mars is my MVP.
So Sharpie on our podcast loves him. We call him our Algerian king and everything. We have a king, so we have King Mares merch. Like it's big fans of him. I have made a big change though. The beginning of the show, I was not the biggest fan of Mares, but I've come to understand I've grown a lot in my time in this show. And I really do appreciate Mahrez, and I really hope to see him in the CL final. I understand why he will probably come on in the 65th minute to score 2 goals and be like destroy the weak-legged Inter defenders. But I
Well, if you
really
got
would
King
like to see him
Myra's
start.
merch, put me on, man. Like, I want to get a couple. Let's go.
Okay, yeah, I'll send it to you after.
Let's do it. I will rock that hardcore.
um, yeah, and I just love Rodri. Rodri's my guy. He's between him and Ederson. I always say we can play a match without one of them, but if we're missing both of them in a match, that's when I'm very stressed because those are two key points of our distribution. And if we are missing both of them, then that means our whole game plan is changed. And
Mhm.
in itself, I feel like will throw the entire team off. And we've seen it multiple times. Ortega's great, and because of his ability to shot block, that I feel like hides a lot of, I guess, the chaos that there really was in these matches. Like Ortega saved us so many times
Oh
this
yeah,
bunch.
yeah. I mean, especially, and we'll probably get ahead of ourselves, but I won't say the lack of form, but the not using of Stefan so much. Ortega had to step up and need be. So
Okay, so looking at the season now, obviously we still have one more match to go. Uh, but would you say Man City have overperformed, underperformed, or have they met your expectations?
I, my expectations, yes, because I told you I wrote the team off. I was like, well, down period, waka waka waka. I'm like the worst fan, man. I'm all doom and gloom, but I think it's still pending because the whole world knew City was good. Whether or not you think it's talent, because it is talent, or you think some kind of external reasons of why they're as good as they are, everyone was like, yo, the one thing that eluded you was this, and it's going to hang over that squad until you get it. I remember when LeBron James couldn't get that first ring forever. Everyone was
Yeah.
like, "Hey man, maybe you ain't that great, player." And then homeboy had to he had to move out of town. He had to go to a whole different city to get the bag. You know what I'm saying, to make that happen. So I would say that for me, definitely met almost even over expected, over exceeded. But for the whole world, we don't really know until that Champions League result comes through.
Yeah. And I know you say you're the worst fan with the doom and gloom, but you're honestly perfectly typical. That's typical City. So that's all you need to just, it's all about phrasing. Is you say doom and gloom, typical City.
Yeah,
That's all it is. Because
yeah,
I have so many City fans who come at me and they're just like, you American fans and your overconfidence and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, well, one, it's fun seeing you guys get upset like this. But also,
yeah.
two, I'm just looking at our history. Yes, if you want to look at overall, but the modern history, there isn't a more successful English football club. And
True.
I think Pep, Cheeky, and the players deserve that respect in statement, I
Yeah.
guess. And that's why I'm just like, because they expect to win. Like, if we lose, I'm not going to lose. I'm not going to start flipping tables. I'm not going to like say Cheeky out. I will never say that. Like, I just I don't see a world where why would you want to expect us to lose? Like I understand feeling anxiety. Like I'm freaking out. I woke up at like 5:45 yesterday being like, I really think Mahrez should start. Like it just like I'm just up early working on things, thinking too much about the stuff. So you're spot on. You're not off in your City fandom. You are nailing it, my friend.
I'll take it because I know some people out there who's like, "Oh, we got conceded a goal, third division, let's go." You know what I mean? But no, I hear you. I'm that way with a lot of teams too, man. Like again, I talked about the baseball side, the New York Mets. A lot of our Mets fans are kind of like, "Oh, we should probably get regulated." You're like, "Bro, it's baseball. What are you doing?" But it is funny how talk about fandoms real quick, and I know this is not the whole point of the show, but it is funny how like there's some people who take like pleasure in getting with their guys and be like, "Oh, we're the worst team ever,"
Mhm.
we should sell the team or whatever. But it's like,
Like all of the United fans when they're losing.
yeah,
Like the second they start winning, they're like, yeah, but the second they lose, they're just like, Glazers
sell the
out.
team, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and commiserating is more fun with friends. I get it. Like I get it. But I don't know. I feel like just City wins too much for me to be upset and angry. I don't know. It's just you burn more calories being upset, I guess. So, maybe they might be low key more healthy than I am. I don't know. I don't know, but also could be giving themselves aneurysms. I don't know. Give or take, yin and yang. Okay, so now we're here. We're in the present. We're about to, in fact, look to the future. Uh, First, Pep. What's your thoughts on Pep? Is this where you say we got to get this old man out of here? Like after you
Right.
said all these delightful things about his adjustments and his flexibility.
Yeah, it's interesting because as somebody who played Football Manager very sparingly and who's played top 11 like very hardcore, Pep's a genius, man. Just to be able to take those parts and find different parts that maybe look different on the outside for a squad to make that work. And so he's on that Jim Ross contract. He can go as long as he wants to. You know what I mean? Like
Facts.
City would have to be like mid table to even think about little bit of Pep. If they're 1 through 6, you're like, well, it's Pep, bro. Like he's just that good. I mean, it is insanely difficult to maintain that kind of form without falling in love with a single formation, without falling in love with a single starting 11. To have fluid, to have the depth to make that work over so many competitions in European football. I mean, why not? You don't like who would you replace him with? I can't do that job.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Everything
Especially
can be a
after
1-9 formation from now on. Just go for it. Just go for it.
y'all will figure it out. You're talented.
Yeah,
You're paid
yeah.
well.
Right. You guys have fun? You guys have fun?
Well, and also with Pep, he said with the 115 charges, I'll be in Division 2 with them. Like I'm not going anywhere. And I know a lot of
Right.
people are like, we don't believe him, but I believe him. I 100% believe the man because that all like, could you imagine him? Like he could have all the fun. He can do whatever he wants to these formations because he knows we're gonna win. So he's definitely
Yeah.
gonna be trying some stuff out for next season.
You look at how thin right now the manager core is. I mean, even you look at relegation doctors like Allardyce couldn't even save a team this. I mean, look, man, there's not a lot of people out there. If you got somebody else, and he better be like living on Mount Olympus as a
Like
replacement.
that
That Pep is there until he says otherwise.
relegation doctors. That's brilliant, sir. Yeah, that's why the only person I can think is company. And it's not even because of the fact, I mean, obviously he's doing great things at Burnley, but it's really just my tie and my love for him.
Yeah.
It, maybe if it's one of those things that company doesn't want to come and deserve, he gets tired of Brighton sending all of his best players away. Maybe he wants to come and bring that flair to City, especially because Pep has said how fantastic he is and he said glowing words about him. And he's what, like 10, 15, 20 years younger than Pep. So that would
Yeah.
be a good idea. So I don't know. Yeah.
He was my guy back when he played. He was the captain. You know what I'm saying? That was my dude.
They, so off season, pickups, movements. What do you see happening? Like, do you see Bernardo, Laporte, Gundo leaving? If so, I mean, you don't necessarily have to give me names, but like, where do you see City making moves and bringing positions in?
Man, if you would have asked me this a month ago, I'd be like, yeah, here's what's going to happen. But like Gundo's form has always been good, but it's
Yeah.
peaking now, and I
Hmm.
hope he stays. And I know that sometimes we fall in love with recency bias, and the next season become really bad. But I think he really earned a spot, unless he wants to find a different system just for his own personal development. That's another thing too. Personally, man, I know we talked about your guys, but I would start experimenting with the new. Depth chart with the goalie's position, the goalkeeper's position. Like I love Ederson. He's been a staple as a stalwart. A little shaky sometimes during this season, especially with some of the kinds of goals conceded,
Whoa.
not the amount, but the kinds of goal conceded. I know you got Stefan Ortega in there as well, but you look at that Loris Krause over there at Newcastle. Can be brought in to bolster up that side to really just say, hey, look, put some pressure on Edison. Say, hey, look, you have it. It's your job to lose. Just don't lose it.
I mean, isn't that what Ortega's for? What I always say is Ortega and Ederson, they give each other good yin and yang because Ortega is an incredible shot stopper, but when he tries to do that Ederson like kick the ball around thing, he'll have a few, but he has the moments where you're just like, what are you doing? And Ederson,
Yeah.
distribution goals, fantastic, but yeah, there are definitely some times where he's like running up to stop a ball, and the guy just kind of just kicks around him, and you're like, all right, can you not seem so confused? Like the ball went right and you went left and low. Like I
Right.
do understand that. I feel like he's gotten better at his shot stopping, but he definitely has something to grow, which makes me feel better because he's not old, but he's also not young. So I think I think he'll get better with time. We'll see. We'll
Sound
see.
like you make a decision with your heart, Crunk chocolate.
That is me. Like that is me all the time. That is I just say things and I ask for forgiveness.
Yeah. What about Josco though? Over there on the defensive side, maybe to replace
Oh, I
on
love
the
that.
sides. Yeah, I mean that'd be kind of cool too if you want to have if you want me to leave your king alone, if you want to leave this alone, we can talk about the defense. I think that's the only thing you could shore up. It's like the offense is good, the distribution is still good. I know KDB is aging. He said it himself as much, but I
Mhm.
do think this engine can go in the midfield at least one more season as it is.
Yeah. Okay, so I really do love the idea of Joe Skull. Do we get a traditional left back, or do we stick with Ake and just try to focus on what we're doing with right back and replacing Kyle Walker? Because we're always tied with Alfonso Davies and other players like him, Tio Hernandez, and right now Herrera from Dortmund. I think that's where he's playing at right now. Guerrero, shoot,
Right.
Guerrero, yeah, the Guerrero, and we're tied to them. I like that idea, but do those players, I guess, fit in this current system that Pep's doing? But also, Pep can do whatever he wants. He'll just figure it out.
Well, I say this as a guy who played left back in high school. More left backs. Oh, we need more dedicated. But you know what? Let's be honest with you. When it comes to players playing out of positions, never ideal. But if you think about someone who's actually really overperformed would need to be right, it's
Mhm.
okay. So why not why fix what's not broken? Why not do that? Double down on it. And if it does something happens, you hit the button, the nuclear button. You can. You have two windows. Make use of that. But as it is right now, I mean, why not put in that fluid kind of like hard to pin down system that Pep is going with right now, where it's almost like he's playing with a hand of cards, and there's like two main formations and maybe a kind of a third there during the European competitions, and really have opponents on the back foot. I say go with it.
Yeah, yeah. And if we can do multiple looks, I feel like I think Pep is learning that that is the crazy he can do. Like he doesn't necessarily have to put people in strange positions or do some crazy formation, which I mean he is doing crazy formations, but he doesn't need to do it for the sake of he can put people in the same positions, and that's what he's been saying in the pre and post match interviews is yes, you guys are saying formationally I'm doing different things, but in the end, the players are doing exactly what I've been having the last set of players do. It just looks different. And I don't know, the way he talks sometimes, that's why I would love to talk to him. Obviously, I'd work better if I knew Spanish because
Right.
the conversation would move more fluent, but it's his brain sometimes it makes my brain hurt because you can tell he was an athlete because even the way that his perception and the way that he phrases things, it's very like semantics, and a lot of like world class athletes are that way too, where they're just like, no, it's like this, and you're like, well, that's a very small, and they're like, it's all in the words, it's all in how you think and portray things.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Not
Different
to just
different level of thinking, man.
just go on a
And
random.
it's really interesting how like the games, even though they're kind of like made to be dumbed down, really puts you in a different level of thinking. You're going, oh, I'm not even thinking about that, or this run of form, or this formation, or this thing. Like when I played top 11, I used to do a 3-4-3 with a diamond formation, which never happens on any level of football. But it was kind of fun to think about what tactics can beat your opponents, and when you see what you have to do on the fly, and the expectations of not only supporters but your sporting director and all that. I mean, it's been showing improvement week after week.
Yeah, and that's another reason why I wanted multiple personalities. Everyone kind of has their great thing, and when it comes to like predicting starting 11s, when it comes to tactics, that's not my thing. I always call myself I'm vibes. I'm vibes Gen. Like I like I can watch a match, and when I explain what's happening, someone who understands tactics can be like, "Yes, this is what you're saying." Blah 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 blah. Blah. I don't want to get into all those weeds as to the eight is doing here and they're holding this and they're trying like all that stuff just makes my brain hurt. And so I
Oh yeah.
just try to interpret the sport how I can and then communicate the way that I do. And luckily, I have fantastic co-hosts and people who understand, the way that I see football.
I see, but you say that though, but you say that kind of almost like dismissively though. But sometimes you can get so lost in the weeds. Like going back to baseball, for example, like there's vibes and there's strategies and there's like switches you can do. But you have some of my friends are so analytical about like the sabermetrics and the deep stats
Mhm.
and stuff like that. You're like, it's still supposed to be fun, bro. Like bring it back. So I bet you're probably the same way for your co-host as well because you need that balance.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right, so let's just say City bring in all of the players that you would hope, the players you want to stay, the players you want to go. What are your expectations for City next season?
Oh yeah,
Oh.
200 points in the Premier League. 300 points. Just win six points a match, man. It's so hard when you're on top. You're so hard when you're on top. What to do? Expectations will be to repeat. If you're not repeat, at least be in the conversation. Finals of tournaments, maybe the Carabao Cup. I mean, that's something you dropped. You know what I mean, but there's really not much you can actually sit and beg for. So repeats across the board.
Yeah, I love the Carabao Cup. Every time I'm like, we need to quit. We need to put respect on it. We Before we got to this time where we were winning all of the Premier League titles and we were getting so close to the Champions League, the Carabao Cup held us down. It's literally like we like you're a high school player and you get signed to a D1 college and you thought you were going to bring your high school girlfriend up with you, and then you start getting surrounded by the baddies, and then all of a sudden you forget about the past. And I like that's what I think we're doing with the Carabao Cup. Like we have forgot about the person who held us down back to back to back for 4 straight years, 5 straight years, and then we lost it, and all of a sudden everyone's like, "Oh well."
I never had any baddies in my area, but I hear what you're saying though, brother. I agree with you. Why not?
I understand you in principle.
Yeah, I was like baddies. What are those? Put me on.
Oh, okay. So I am out of questions, but I mean, we really didn't talk about wrestling, and that's fine. We can hop in there. I mean, is there anything about city wise that you want to talk about we didn't discuss, or anything about yourself or your city fandom you wanted to cover?
Just real quick, I had mentioned it about visiting the Etihad, and I don't want to call it a pilgrimage, not to like to discredit that, but I feel like any fan needs to do that. I
Yeah.
know it could be a pain in the butt with like getting tickets,
Uh-huh.
and it's like there's some kind of weird ass process. You gotta get yourself a regional supporter group. I'm in the Hollywood supporters,
Blue
and
Moon
go.
Dallas over here, baby.
Let's go, baby. You gotta go for two reasons. One, obviously see your team live and get the energy or whatever. But at the end of the day, even though Manchester City is this giant brand and it's so there's so much money in there. Let's call it what it is. It's a very cash rich organization. The people that still go are people like you and me. It's Manchester. It's a
Mhm.
blues out of Manchester. There's like families and moms and dads and longshoremen who show up to games, and that to me makes it real. And it
Yeah.
really feels like you're playing for the city. So please, if you can go out there, please go out there. It changed my life, my perspective. You enjoy it too.
Yeah. Oh, I legitimately have already bought the tickets to fly to
Yeah.
Manchester. I haven't even gotten my match tickets. Like it's piece by piece. I'm gonna figure it out. I got the passport. I got the tickets now to go to Manchester. So now it's just like going there and getting. But I'm part of the supporter group. I'm not too arsed about it. It's could be lots of matches at the beginning of the season. And I saw them in Houston last year, and that was amazing. And just being able to connect with the U.S. city community, and then there were some city fans from England that came here, and so that was really nice being able to meet them. But that was my first experience with, just being. I've never been around so many people in city here. I live in Eastern Iowa. It's very small. I've been able to make some city fans that live in this area, but that's only because of my show. I've been able to like find them through social media, oddly enough. And so I know I'm gonna be mad emotional when I get to the Etihad for the first time. I want to do all of this. I want to do the tours. I want to do anything and everything. I'm gonna be
Right?
hitting up any and every person I know who works for City, trying to get all the little extra things that I can get.
Yeah.
Like I want the full on experience, and I'm very much, and like I understand you wanted to be respectful for pilgrimage, but that is like what I joke to and say to people. It's like a pilgrimage that a lot of U.S. city fans, well, just non-Manchester based city fans should experience in their life if they can. Obviously, pricing and everything
Absolutely. I,
varies.
I was in the cheap seats. Like I was like way up there because that's the tickets that were available. And that was the FA Cup thing. And I was next to this family, a mom, dad, and a son. And I was like, oh man, go City. And I go, what's your accent? I'm like, oh, I came from Los Angeles. And they didn't believe me. They're like, you flew 11 hours to come here? Like what? Like, yes, your team is a global brand. Like it's a thing. It goes, oh, okay. You want a picture? Like it's not. It just blew their mind. Some guy halfway across the world was like, "So, I'm a fan like you guys." So, pretty cool. It's pretty dope.
Yeah, I mean, and that was the crazy thing because it was in the Energy Stadium. That's the in Texas. That's where the Astros play. There was 80,000 people in there, and yes, we were playing another team, but it was easily half of it was City fans, and so it was just like 80,000 people just packed in cheering for football, and like chills. Like I had my voice was almost gone. It was like 80% gone, and this was a friendly game here in the U.S. I can't imagine how I'm gonna feel when I get in Manchester.
Yeah, man, you'll love it. You'll love it, brother.
All right. Well, please plug yourself, the many things you do, your podcast, etc. Let people know how they can get a hold of you, social media, all those things.
Yeah, well, I'm not crunk chocolate though. I mean, I ain't trying to be, I ain't swag like you are though. But I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try. Yo, it's flobito.com, FLOBITO.com, newamsterdam.com. That's KNEW. Amsterdam.com. The revival of my NXT podcast, Draped in Gold, is coming back now the first week of June. So make sure they'll be out for that. It's called Draped in
Hey,
Gold, drapedingold.com. And hey, look, just Google me now. I can say that with my career. Google my name, my stuff comes up. Took me 15 years, but it's true.
well, we here, Mama. We made it.
We did. We made it. We made it.
I'm actually very excited about your Draped in Gold because I paid attention to, I watched both Monday, Friday brands, and I tried to watch NXT, but it still feels like a lot. Because the way that I got back into wrestling was, well, back into the level that I am now is when we had the few months off and during COVID, I went back and I watched like a whole year before the
Mm,
current wrestling, so I could get to know the current wrestlers, get used to the the energy because it is completely different from when I watched over a decade ago. Like it's like I missed a whole bunch. So
yeah.
NXT, I still need to get in, but I want to be able to understand a little bit better than just like hopping in. So I will definitely be on that draped in gold.
Oh, though, first of all, thank you so much. Second of all, what I like about wrestling, and I know we're now in the podcast zone, and we're in the content era that there's like this expectation to be on all the time. But what makes wrestling so great is like it's a bus, man. You hop on when you want, and drop off
Hmm.
when you don't, because there's no rerun. So I always tell fans who are Lats fans, don't be ashamed. Just get back in today. Please don't make it to a work assignment because you can get really bogged down with stuff.
Yeah.
What makes Drape to Go different is that we don't sit there and go, so this was the match. Thoughts about the match. We treat it as if it's like first take, or we treat it as if it's like speak or undisputed. So I hopefully you'll listen to the show, even not watching it, and go, hey, these guys love Eddie Dennis or Carmelo Hayes or Tyler Bay. I'm gonna look for them next time. Almost
Hmm.
like a cheat sheet guide, so you don't have to feel like you have to watch 2 hours of homework to watch our recap show.
No, and that's great. That's exactly what I need is. explaining because you know a lot of these people they came from like either indies or they've been a part of WWE for a while, and when they get moved up, they do this weird thing where they just expect fans to kind of know who they are, but also trying to like uplift them at the same time. And
Yeah,
I would love to be able to give some of these people the love that they, you know, they deserve and understand they deserve. And I love the whole idea of, you know, the first take and arguing. Like, I feel like ours with our show, we very much needed to take it seriously because we understand we're Americans, we're also black men, so there are those first two strikes that people who just initially want to look at it can give us. But if you listen to us, we talking that football shit, like we are doing our thing. But
yeah,
also, as black people, we're joyous, we're fun,
right.
we are a culture in ourselves. So I wanted to also make sure I brought that into the show. So I really do feel like we're nearing out our second season and we're gelling really well and we're finding this nice little place between like you know seriousness and absolute unseriousness. I think that's the beautiful thing about podcasting.
Yeah, it is, man. Watch one having a perspective, no one's doing it, and then watching the show evolve is really what makes the good podcast great. And I know it's kind of a weird example because I don't listen to a show at all. I don't listen to a show at all.
No
But if we go
words.
back to Joe Rogan, his first episode is still on YouTube, and it's way different than what it looks like now. And he's on episode what 2000. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But evolution is always great, man. And my co-host Jack Farmer isn't a brother, but I do think we have that kind of like dynamic because he is very traditional, very
Yes.
broadcasty, very
Yes,
straight
he is.
laced,
Yeah,
and
he
I could be
is.
like, "Bro, what are you talking about? Like, Jack, what are you doing?" You know what I mean? So like, it does have that kind of like comedy thing too to it. So
Yeah. Yeah, no, truly. I very much enjoy Jack Farmer, the things that he does, all the wrestling pods. Uh, I very much I I don't listen to any other like city podcast and because I don't want them to melt my brain and make me feel like I'm saying their things. But some of the my biggest inspirations is wrestling podcasts, and it's not necessarily because you know personas and stuff like that. It's because of you being able to, because we know what wrestling is in itself,
mhm.
but being able to take it serious and like talk about the dialogue and what one move can mean future wise and talking to the past and there's a whole level of you know like dedication buy-in mentality that
Oh yeah,
takes from doing a wrestling podcast because you could easily people who hate it could easily just like it's planned wrestling. What can you talk about? But there's so much you can talk about. And I wanted to take that energy, that mindset to football because I feel a lot of football podcasts are, all right, here's this match. What did you
yeah.
hate about it? What did you like about it? And so I obviously you can do those things. You have to do those things, but it's all just like, all right, let's dig deeper than this general thing. Let's actually talk about
I think one of the cool things about well, with the exception of AEW, but there's no stats in wrestling,
it.
right? So it's really just how you feel and psychological things too. So you don't sit there and be like, well, you know, he has 3 pin attempts for those last 5 matches because it doesn't make any sense for that. And so I look at like for me at esports, right? I got into esports because I wasn't somebody who was like, wow, that's a very good mechanical move they did. It's like, bam, headshot, his team is down. What's going through your mind? I do think that's what people latch on to. The good vibes comes from that, the human condition. So shout out to Shades of Blue podcast and what you're doing over there. It's really show Manchester City fandom that we actually are multifaceted. We aren't a monolith. We have different stories to tell.
Hey, I will clip that part right there. That's going to be beautiful. Thank you, sir. Well, I won't hold you anymore. Well, thank you again, Shady Gang. Give it up for our man Flobo Boyce, Flobito. We out here. And you know the vibes. Shady Gang, Shady Gang, Shady Gang.